So I would start my questioning with Mr. Lamiriu. Sir, what national policies or regulatory reforms can be implemented to improve intra-Africa air connectivity and reduce operational costs of airlines?
Good afternoon. So thank you for, I want to thank for the FDP for creating this platform and who made this platform to happen. Thank you. As to the question to improve intra-African connectivity and to reduce operational costs, we need to implement at least the following regulatory policies or reforms to improve the intra-African connectivity, such as number one is full implementation of SATAM. As you may know, as you all know, SATAM has been adopted in 2018, but the implementation is very slow. So as we are, as Ethiopia has taken the initiative and signed the SATAM many years ago, and then we have been, the government of Ethiopia has been working toward this, realizing the SATAM agreement. So SATAM is an AU project aimed at unifying, to have a unified and single African market. So as of now, as early this morning reported, as of now, we have 37 countries signed the SATAM, which represents 89% of the aviation market. And then if we fully implement SATAM, SATAM increases intra-African air traffic by 51%. And create...
So if I may just interrupt you there, because I want to know, what can we be doing? Because these 37 countries that have signed, what is it that is still lacking that they are not implementing? Because 37 is 80-something%, you said?
Sure.
Now, why are they not implementing? And why have the others not signed? So if we try to address that, we might be able to get to the real issues.
Sure. Thank you. I'll come to that. You can imagine this 89% of the market share, or 37 countries are fully committed. It's a matter of commitment. So if you are committed as a state, if you are fully committed, it's not something else. It's a matter of commitment. So if we are fully committed and then implement SATAM, so we can take the benefit of SATAM. So even in terms of employment, it's projected to, according to AU, 300,000 direct and 2 million indirect jobs can be created by implementing SATAM. So we need to be more committed as an African state to implement SATAM. The second is harmonization of regulations. So we have inconsistent regulations across Africa. So we need to align those safety, security, and operational standards across Africa. By harmonizing, according to AFCAC, by harmonizing regulations, we can reduce operational costs for airline by 20 to 30%. So by only even harmonizing the safety, security, and operational standards, we can reduce. The other is, so we need, in respect to the second harmonization, so states shall establish regional regulatory bodies. I recommend regional regulatory bodies to oversee and enforce harmonized standards or empower or strengthen AFCAC. Either AFCAC has to do this thing. Once it's harmonized, it doesn't mean it will stay harmonized, but it has to be consistently harmonized. So in order to monitor this, a regulatory regional body has to be there. This has to be maybe an independent one, or AFCAC has to be empowered to do so. And the other, as Mr. Raphael explained, infrastructure deficiencies. This has to be, investment has to be in this modern, investing in modern airport infrastructure and air navigation services is crucial. for efficient operations. Modern, well-equipped airports can handle more traffic and reduce delays. Therefore, example, the expansion of Addis Ababa, if you take the case of Ethiopia, the expansion of Addis Ababa International Airport has significantly increased the capacity and efficiency of the airport itself. So modernizing the air navigation facilities and modernizing airport facilities has to be a priority. And the other is reduction of taxes and fees. High taxes and fees can significantly increase operational costs for airlines. Therefore, leveraging tax and fees can reduce operational costs by 15%, making air travel more affordable. So if we are talking about connectivity and affordability, so we need to we need to lower taxes and fees. So in this regard, I recommend governments shall conduct regular review of aviation-related taxes and fees to ensure they are competitive and affordable. And
I think just let me hold you there for a moment,
okay,
so that I get your colleagues to chip in on a similar subject.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mobet, you are from ECAS, a regional economic community. Now, how can regional economic communities work with governments and airlines to create the right regulatory environment? As you heard, your colleague is saying we need commitment. We need harmonization of regulations. Now, as a regional economic community, I think one of the mandates is to ensure a harmonization of our regulations across the regs. So what can you do to help the industry in this regard? Thank you.
Merci pour cette question. Pour répondre à la question, j'aimerais d'abord vous dire, pour proposer une démarche, il faut se situer dans le temps depuis la décision de Yamoussoukro. Selon la première hypothèse, cela dépend de l'interprétation qu'on donne à l'alinéa 2 de l'article 2 de la décision de Yamoussoukro. La première hypothèse qui était au départ, avant celle de 2016, c'était de faire de sorte que 2 ans après la période de la transition, il n'y avait plus lieu d'admettre les accords bilatéraux et encore que les libéralisations réalisées dans les sous-régions devaient s'harmoniser, tout comme les accords bilatéraux, avec la décision de Yamoussoukro, avec les principes de la décision de Yamoussoukro. Et donc, puisqu'on sait bien qu'en réservant le marché aux seules compagnies de ces régions, on n'est pas en phase avec les orientations qui se trouvent dans la décision, et encore la survivance des accords bilatéraux bloque notamment la prise de participation de différentes compagnies, dans de différentes compagnies par des investisseurs de la région, et également, avec effet induit, augmenter le trafic avec la création de nouvelles routes et engendrer la possibilité de mise en place des compagnies à bas coût, et voire même augmenter des trafics dans certaines, disons, régions isolées. Par contre, si on prend la réflexion qui est faite, ou sinon la décision qui était faite depuis 2016, dans le cadre de la construction du marché unique de transport aérien, on a plutôt opté de passer par la signature d'un engagement solennel et ensuite, en seconde phase, de maintenir les accords bilatéraux tout en les amenant lors des négociations qui est plus d'exercice de droit de 4 3 et 5e liberté. Or, si on examine ce maintien des accords bilatéraux, le marché, l'accès au marché reste toujours fermé. Et donc, on devrait plus aboutir, du point de vue réglementaire, à un marché qui est formé par un maillage que de routes de 5e liberté, qui sont isolées. Et pour les compagnies aériennes, on ne les aide pas à se doter d'un réseau important sous forme de hub and spoke. Donc, pour essayer de contourner, si je dois conseiller une compagnie aérienne, c'est essayer de passer des alliances avec d'autres compagnies pour essayer de se connecter. Mais maintenant, dans les chantiers ouverts aujourd'hui au niveau de la CAFAC, ils ont, du point de vue réglementaire,
if I may, you know, as a regional economic community, I think you have a role to ensure that we ensure that regulations are harmonized, that air transport activities are facilitated within the sub-region. What are we not doing right? That is what I sort of wanted to address, so that we know what should we ought to be doing going forward. Thank you.
Ce que nous ne faisons pas aujourd'hui, dans le cadre, notamment, comme j'ai dit, dans la démarche qui est engagée depuis 2016, c'est de maintenir les accords bilatéraux, donc de continuer à fermer le marché, pour lesquels on ne dit pas quand est-ce qu'on va en sortir de cette logique. Aussi, quoique maintenant, on prend le choix de faire signer des accords types, mais on ne propose pas de quelle manière les pays qui auront signé des accords de ce type pourraient proposer de relier ces accords avec d'autres pays. C'est-à-dire qu'il n'y a pas de cause, par exemple, d'extension géographique qui peut permettre à relier les compagnies. Et en plus de ça, ce qui pose problème au niveau de la réglementation, vous savez bien que toutes ces pratiques, en maintenant les accords bilatéraux, il y a souvent un problème de concurrence. Et les textes aujourd'hui disponibles, par exemple en matière d'entente, manquent de procédures dans lesquelles qui peuvent être utilisées pour pouvoir présenter des exemptions individuelles, par exemple. Les régimes de notification pour lesquels on peut présenter des exemptions individuelles. Parce qu'on ne peut pas interdire une entente tant qu'on ne peut pas proposer un mécanisme qui permet de dire que celles qui sont bénéfices pour le marché puissent exister. En plus aussi, au-delà des exemptions individuelles, il n'y a pas non plus de règles de procédure pour l'exemption par catégorie. C'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui, il y a des pratiques qui sont acceptées par le marché, mais on ne dit pas si les compagnies peuvent le pratiquer tout en toute sécurité. Et je vais encore aller plus loin. Lorsque dans les règlements actuels, on parle de subventions, on dirait des aides d'État, on ne dit pas quelles sont les conditions dans lesquelles on peut soumettre ces aides à des conditions pour qu'on puisse les accepter à un certain moment. Je pense ici, par exemple, il manque aussi des règles de procédure qui manquent pour faire une différence, par exemple, entre les subventions qui sont nécessaires pour l'aménagement du territoire. C'est-à-dire que prévoir des compensations aux compagnies aériennes qui sont appelées à desservir des zones isolées et qui aura comme un effet induit d'amener du trafic dans ces zones isolées et de créer de la ressource et aussi d'amener, plus de trafic et comme effet induit, créer des emplois, ainsi de suite.
Thank you so much. I think I've heard you said severally using we. I'm not too sure who the we refers to, because I don't know whether it refers to us as individuals here, the states as countries, or the regional economic communities. But I'll come to that. I'll come to that shortly. We need to drill down to know who should actually be doing what. But before I get there, Mr. Kone, you work for ASECNA, Air Navigation Service Provider. Today, we've observed some level of inefficiency and lack of optimization of airspace use. But we are anticipating that under SATAM, we're going to have even more traffic. So can you tell us how SECNA is planning to optimize airspace management and reduce the associated cost for users? Thank you.
Il faut dire que la SECNA, c'est déjà 18 États africains qui gèrent de façon commune leur espace aérien. Donc, il y a déjà une harmonisation des procédures au niveau de la gestion de l'espace aérien pour ces 18 États africains. Et depuis déjà plusieurs années, une dizaine d'années maintenant, la SECNA a initié un vaste programme d'investissement dans les technologies de dernière génération en termes d'outils de gestion du trafic aérien, mais également en termes de moyens de communication, de visualisation du trafic et de navigation aérienne. Pourquoi cela? L'objectif est d'accommoder évidemment la croissance du trafic qui était prévisible, mais également de faire en sorte que nous puissions organiser l'espace aérien et permettre aux usagers de l'air, notamment les compagnies aériennes, de choisir des trajectoires optimisées. Comment cela se fait? Nous avons mis en œuvre le guidage radar dans tous les États membres. Nous avons également, grâce à un partenariat avec une société américaine appelée Aeron, nous avons déployé la technologie de surveillance du trafic de type ADS-B, c'est une technologie satellitaire, et qui nous permet aujourd'hui de visualiser le trafic dans les 17 millions de kilomètres carrés que nous gérons. Et ça permet aux aéronefs de choisir des routes préférentielles, d'éviter la congestion au niveau des aéroports, donc d'accélérer le trafic et de réduire la consommation de carburant. Et comme vous le savez, le carburant est un coût, le poste de carburant c'est un poste très important pour les compagnies africaines en particulier. Nous sommes autour de 30%. Et donc, au-delà de notre mission de sécurité, nous mettons un point d'honneur à l'efficacité de l'exploitation, l'efficacité économique. Et pour cela, justement, nous aménageons ces trajectoires-là qui permettent d'optimiser les vols et de réduire la consommation. Pour être beaucoup plus concret, nous sommes actuellement en collaboration avec l'AFRA. Nous travaillons à mettre en œuvre un concept de free routing area, de trajectoires libres qui permettront aux aéronefs, entre deux villes données, de choisir des routes qui leur permettront d'optimiser la consommation du carburant. Nous avons également mis en œuvre dans les espaces un peu plus éloignés, nous avons réduit l'espacement entre les avions de 150 km pratiquement à 50 km, et cela permet d'accélérer le trafic. Donc c'est un certain nombre de mesures que la SECNA prend pour accélérer le trafic, permettre aux avions d'optimiser leur trajectoire et de réduire la consommation de carburant et partant de réduire également l'empreinte carbone et la protection de l'environnement.
Thank you very much. Those are very laudable steps you are taking, but are these sufficient to cope with the growing traffic that is anticipated? Are you sure going into the future you would be able to continue to provide the same level of support?
Oui, évidemment, cela n'est pas suffisant, mais nous anticipons, évidemment. Nous travaillons sur, également au niveau de l'espace supérieur, sur le concept de ciel unique, en relation avec nos voisins pour faire en sorte qu'on puisse, je dirais, accommoder la croissance du trafic aérien dans les années à venir.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. Mr. Apavu, what are the key policy recommendations IATA has for governments and regulators to improve air connectivity on the African continent?
Thank you, Rafael. I think, first of all, let me thank AFDB for the invitation. And secondly, let me dive into that pudding, right? So we are talking about affordability. In fact, when we look at the propensity to spend on air travel on the continent, it is the lowest. And this is in contradiction with an environment for operating aircraft, which is the highest. In fact, if we ask all the CEOs of airlines here, they will tell you that their CASK, their unit of production, is very high. And you know, when we look into the details, let me give you some figures. By the end of this year, we'll reach probably 176 million passengers in 2024. And this is estimated to double in the next 20 years, that is 2044. Now, if we do a simple maths, saying that the GDP and traffic growth is very much correlated, is 1 to 2. So basically, when we know that the average GDP growth for Africa is 3%, 3.5% to be more precise, you multiply it by 2, you have a 7%, right? And you compound it over 10 years, it's double. So we will not double in 2034. We'll have to wait to 2044 to reach that number, which give you basically highlighting some of the core reasons why we are not having that growth. That growth, we have two basically root cause. This is physical limitation and non-physical limitation. When we look at the physical limitation, I think my colleagues from the NSP has highlighted, so there are some lack of investment in terms of infrastructure in the airports, but not only. When we look at, for example, the traffic profile in Africa, and as I mentioned, you know, 176 million passengers, out of it, 80% are extra-continental, so going and coming from outside the continent and to the continent, or from the continent to outside the continent. When we look at the domestic and regional, it's only 20%. Now, if we look at this 20%, you'll see that actually it is split in two. 12% is domestic and only 8% is regional. There is a lot to be done in infrastructure, on limitation, that is physical limitation, but not only. I think I mentioned CASK, the cost available seats kilometer, which is among the highest in the world. So, you know, these airlines are suffering a lot. The industry is suffering a lot because, one, as I mentioned, the propensity to spend on air travel is the lowest. How can you stimulate your market for people to travel more? So when you look into the details, you see that actually fuel is 17% higher than the world average, knowing that actually fuel cost in the operational cost is 25%. So in Africa, it's around 40%, and it's very high. Now, if you look at TFCs, as mentioned by my colleagues here, it is 12% higher than the world average. Tax fees and charges. Air navigation charges, 10% higher than anywhere else. Maintenance costs, 6% higher. Insurance costs, 6% higher. And cost of capital, 8% higher. So, well, this is a very big headache. How can we make it even better? Because all what I mentioned has an impact, of course, on the cost of operation. And if we look at what are the recommendations we could eventually, put on the table, would be, when we look at insurance costs, leases, cost of capital, and even cooperation with other airlines like Codeshare or Interline. So all depends very much on one single, very important parameter in our industry, that is safety and security, which unfortunately we are still lagging behind on the continent. We are catching up, but not quickly enough. The other point that I could mention is prioritization of aviation from the government point of view, right? And we have seen, for example, there is a lot of protectionism, and what I can tell you, in the study that was done in 2021, ordered by AFCAC, we have been investigating 600 BASA, so the bilateral air service agreement between countries. Out of these 600 BASAs, 52 of them are third and fourth freedom restricted. Right? So there is restriction for you to operate from point A to point B in terms of frequencies, in terms of type of aircraft that you could fly. And if you look even further, you will see that actually 80% of those BASA has a provision for fifth freedom. So, and I think I've said it all. And the other point that I think it's important for us to note, and which has not been mentioned by my colleagues here, is actually investment in human capital. So if we want to increase safety, to have a better safety, we need to invest in human capital, better training, more training, but not only, also in technology. I think I will stop here and then share probably some more later.
Okay, thank you so much. But I didn't quite get the point you were making on the low propensity to spend on air travel. Are you saying that we should slow down on the single African air transport market?
No, what I'm saying, Rafael, is basically in Africa, we can't travel, basically. If you look at it, as I mentioned, it's only 8% regional traffic. And for this, we can question all the impediments for travel. You need visa, you need foreign currency, you need as well packages from hotel and affordable packages. If you look at this, I mean, I'm from an island, right? I'm from Mauritius Island. So we have these packages. We invite people to come and visit. You need attractions. There are only few countries, a handful of countries in Africa, having investment in such kind of infrastructure, welcoming regional traffic. So if you want regional traffic, you want your people to travel from point A to another country in point B, right? And you need frequencies, but you need it as an affordable price. You need it at a proper price. If it is too high, you won't. And there is one mechanism that we are trying, at least AFCAC is trying to put in place, is liberalization. And this is basically stimulation by prices, increasing competition, and hence making it more accessible, more economically affordable for people to travel. Okay. But let's not forget, if you want to travel, you need a reason. And there is a traffic in Africa because, look, there is a lot of people going abroad for a vacation. And we probably should tap on that opportunity and create very much, you know, with the intertwined sector, tourism and aviation should work probably together and design packages for regional tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be coming to you if you have any questions to ask my guest. So if you have questions, please just note them down. I would come back to you very shortly. Mr. Getu. Now, I now want us to look at how can we move forward. We've had enough of the lamentation. Since morning, we've been lamenting here. Okay? I want us to move forward. How do we, and by we, I'm referring to African governments, how can we collaborate to bring about regulatory harmonization that will sustain air traffic growth on the continent? Thank you.
Thank you. So in order to collaborate with other nations in Africa, we need to collaborate with regional economic communities like Eastern African communities, Southern Africa Development Community, and ECOWAS. Those we need to collaborate with them, and they can help harmonize aviation policies and regulations. These communities can serve as a platform for negotiating and implementing regional agreements. The other is public-private partnership. So encouraging PPPs can attract investment and experts from private sector. Governments can work together so that they can create favorable conditions for private investment in aviation infrastructure. So by doing so, even PPPs in aviation can reduce project costs by 15 to 20% and accelerate completion time by 30%. And the other is an example, we can take the partnership between the government of Senegal and Turkish Airlines to manage the Blaise Diagne international airport, and has led to improved services and increased passenger traffic. So governments shall create clear legal frameworks and incentives to attract private investment in aviation infrastructure and services. That's what I...
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So to collaborate, we need the RECs. So the RECs should be the first building blocks of our collaboration. I mean, it's also what I have always taught. And some people in the industry also think the same, that we need our regional economic communities to be the rallying point for harmonization of our regulations. At least if we have 5, 6 RECs, it's easier for us to harmonize regulations across RECs than to harmonize regulations across 55 countries. So I can agree with you more. And besides, we also need public-private partnership. So based on that, Mr. Mobe, I come to you. You are a REC, and you are referring to we. Now, I want you to be more specific. Regional cooperation and alignment. How do we bridge the gap in our cooperation move? We know that there's a gap. We are not collaborating enough. And you said earlier on that the Yamoussoukro made provisions that by a certain date, we should throw away the BASAs and have Africa as a free market for us. Yet we are holding on to those BASAs. From a REC's perspective, how do we proceed? Because the BASAs are not thrown away yet. What will you do as your REC? Thank you.
Oui, en tant que communauté régionale, on a un chantier d'abord sur les questions de volet marché, mais aussi de volet aviation civile. Là, je voudrais dire, lorsque je disais nous, les communautés nationales ne travaillent pas en vase clos. Les communautés nationales participent dans des groupes, dans un groupe de travail mis en place au niveau de l'Union africaine. Et je vais tout de suite préciser que les communautés régionales ont signé un mémorandum de coopération avec la CAFAC, toutes les communautés nationales, pour essayer de travailler sur la manière de conduire la mise en place du marché unique et qui va à terme permettre à faciliter l'accès au marché à toutes les compagnies éligibles sur le marché. Au-delà des questions de marché, les communautés régionales travaillent aussi sur des questions techniques, notamment puisqu'ils sont souvent source de distorsions dans l'exercice du transport, et les questions de sécurité à travers des RSO, aussi sur les questions de sûreté. Et on travaille aussi dans le cadre des communautés nationales, souvent parfois sur certains projets avec l'appui de l'IATA, pour qu'il y ait une certaine harmonisation, que ça ne soit plus un certain frein. Au-delà même aussi du transport, il y a la réforme qui est en cours à l'Union africaine sur la répartition des tâches, sur la division du travail. Et la division du travail ne se limite pas qu'à d'autres secteurs et en touche également l'aviation civile. Et donc, dans le travail qui a été lancé depuis Niamey en 2009 essaye de donner le ton sur la manière dont les communautés, les États et l'Union africaine devaient collaborer pour construire ce marché unique dans le cadre de l'agenda 2063.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Let me go to your colleague for also some brief comments on collaboration. ASEGNA represents 18 countries on the African continent. But besides, we still have some air navigation service providers which cover very small regions. What is ASEGNA doing to increase the scope of its coverage so as to bring more economies of scale to the business? How are you collaborating with other ANSPs to bring about more efficiency and benefits to the country?
Oui, merci. Je pense que la SECNA elle-même, c'est un modèle de coopération sud-sud. Comme vous le dites, nous avons 18 États africains aujourd'hui, le Rwanda étant le dernier à intégrer depuis janvier. Et la SECNA regroupe des États de diverses régions. Nous avons des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, de l'Afrique centrale, de la SADC. Et c'est un modèle de coopération, je dirais, réussi. Alors, comment nous collaborons avec les autres pour faire en sorte que nous puissions déployer une économie d'échelle beaucoup plus importante? Cette collaboration se fait surtout au niveau, au niveau opérationnel et stratégique. Quand nous prenons par exemple nos voisins immédiats qui sont le Ghana, le Nigeria et l'Afrique Roberts qui regroupe 3 États, notamment le Libéria, la Sierra Leone et la Guinée, nous avons signé un mémorandum de coopération en 2017 qui permettent de partager les informations de trafic aérien, d'interconnecter nos systèmes opérationnels et avec pour objectif de créer un corridor dans le golfe de Guinée pour permettre aux aéronefs de circuler de façon fluide, sans barrière et optimiser leur trajectoire. C'est quelque chose d'important. Et nous avons également lancé un projet très ambitieux, notamment de navigation par satellite, que nous appelons le SBAS, qui est une amélioration des signaux du GPS et du Galileo pour offrir des approches sécurisées aux aéronefs. Et vous direz pourquoi je parle de ce projet. Il est important parce qu'il permettra d'améliorer la connectivité en offrant aux aérodromes qui ne sont pas dotés de systèmes d'atterrissage de précision de permettre justement de doter ces aérodromes régionaux de systèmes d'atterrissage de précision et donc améliorer la connectivité. Et ce programme nécessite une forte coopération régionale. Nous avons besoin pour couvrir, ne serait-ce que l'espace à SECNA, d'installer 36 stations sol. 36 stations sol, y compris dans des pays qui ne sont pas de la SECNA. Et cette collaboration se fait de façon assez bien. Et c'est un projet important de 230 millions d'euros. C'est important. Nous avons mobilisé aujourd'hui 90 millions d'euros, donc 140 millions d'euros. J'espère bien qu'avec les échanges avec la Banque africaine de développement, elle pourra accompagner la SECNA pour justement financer ce projet important pour le continent africain et l'amélioration de la connectivité sur le continent.
Okay. No, thank you so much for that. So there's collaboration going on. We want you to intensify that because Africa needs it. We need more efficiencies in the sector. Before I come to the floor, our time is almost running out. I'll just have 5 minutes for the floor. Somas, how can IATA support airlines and airports in adopting best practices in Africa? Briefly. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, airlines and airport, well, airline passengers and cargo need safe, functional, and affordable infrastructure for them to operate safely and also to succeed. So how we can help the connectivity or the airports is basically by having more constructive and consulting, let's say, committees. So by putting everyone around the table, because we understand that without airport or without the airline, there will be no airport, and without airport, you can't operate. And airport has to be efficient, affordable, and as well being planned to tackle progress that is, resilient, but also flexible to be able to adapt to new technologies. How we do that? We basically have very good relation with airports and the government and authorities. We are involved in many projects across the globe and do make sure that airlines have the proper infrastructure to operate in a best environment and being very much effective. How we do that, as I mentioned, we put on committees so that the airlines' voice is being properly heard by the airport and the authorities.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now to the floor. Any questions?
Thank you so much. And my name is Alexander Ayata from Ghana. In fact, I was discussing with a friend here. Ghana is 67 years now. I don't know the age of Ivory Coast and the rest. Of course, retiring age and +7. I came here and I'm told that somebody from Nigeria has to come to Ghana before coming to Ivory Coast. One time we're going to Kigali, we went to Ethiopia before we got to Kigali. And all the speakers here, I don't believe that this is the first meeting that you have here. Can we have timelines so that we can look at the actionable what? No points. So that next time when we come here, we're not talking about when and when and when. Until we begin to put timelines, we'll continue to be talking here every day. So I want to ask, when can somebody fly from Ghana to Kigali, Nigeria to Ivory Coast? Thank you.
Yes, I'm Nelly Fioldes. I'm a journalist from Jeune Afrique. And my question is in particular for Mr. Jetu. Last year, a few countries decided that they were ready and willing for SATM, and they decided to implement the SATM. But 1 year later, it seems nothing happens. But between this precise country seems not to be finished, and SATM is still not implemented, even in this precise country. I wonder why.
My name is Musa from United States. I just have a question for Mr. Apavu. You just talk about like the lack of, like we have a small market, like domestic and regional market. What do you plan to do to stimulate that market? Because any business needs a market. Other than the three ones, capital, human resources, system, the market is the one that drains everything. So if we don't have the market, what we can do by that? So what is your suggestion to stimulate that market? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Musa. And the last question is here.
My name is Monday. My question is to Mr. Somas. You make mention of price, and I was very keen. It's very, I'll be talking from a consumer side. It's very expensive to travel. Very, very expensive, except if you are funded. We want to organize programs and kind of like very difficult. So what is, although you talk about it, what are the practical steps where air ticket or airlines will be affordable and not be a burden also to the government? How can we balance?
Why not all African countries didn't sign the SATM? So that is what I have been discussing, because it's a lack of commitment, and then they need to, by now, at 2030, the deadline is 2030. By 2030, all African countries are required to sign the SATM. So if it is, though it is late, there is still time left. So we need all those to get signed. But a regulatory authority like AFCAC has to take the initiative, and it needs to direct approach and convince those states to come to the table and sign the SATM. So that's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you very much. On Alex's question, I'll come to Alex's question at the end. So the next question from Musa is to Somas.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. In fact, the question, if I understood properly, how to stimulate the market.
Stimulate the market?
Right, okay. There are two ways of stimulating a market. either by price or by services that you're offering. So if we focus on price, then you know, this industry is very much economy of scale driven, that is volume driven. So how can we stimulate the market through prices is to attack one of the most important ingredient here is the cost of operation. As mentioned before, the cost of operating in Africa, that is the unit cost of production, which is called CASK, this is the cost available seats kilometer, is very high in Africa. And one of the biggest is actually fuel. We have to reduce the fuel costs. And if you look at it, we have to detail it and look at every country, what are their policies, how they regulate it, how they go and purchase the fuel, the Jet A1 from other countries, and what are the processes, how can we enhance it so that airlines benefit from a cheaper price of fuel. The other one, which is very much related to government decision and regulators, is actually the tax fees and charges, which are 12% higher than the world average. And well, if basically the regulators or government try to reduce it, or see that they will have to basically trigger the volume first and then get it from a volume point of view rather than on a unit when you sell it, that will be very, very much say interesting for the airline. And then the other one is the services, as I mentioned. So if you want to have basically better services, when we talk about services in our industry, we talk about frequencies. The more frequencies you put, the more you will stimulate the traffic and invite the traffic to travel. But as I mentioned, there is a showstopper. You need to know what you offer to your travelers. If the travelers don't know why they have to travel, you won't stimulate the travel, because even if the price is low, but you're still not interested to travel. That's what I meant. They need really a cooperation between the air travel industry and the tourism industry to create attraction for people to travel. Just remember, 20 years ago, Dubai was not an attraction, and they make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just in one word, and in response to Alex's question, in 2 years' time from now, what should we be doing, or what should we do?
Okay.
One sentence, what should we do to improve connectivity?
Short-term, long-term, Raphael. If we look at the long-term is SATEM. On the short-term, we really need to tackle the buzzer, the contradiction having countries not observing the international treaties, that is Chicago Convention. We are talking about more than 52% of the buzzers are restricted in frequencies and in operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any of the panelists have any comments on that question? What should we do so that in 2 years' time, it's easier to connect Africa than it is today? Yes, Mother.
Oui. Moi, je pense plutôt, à essayant d'examiner la manière où on cherche à dénationaliser le marché, c'est-à-dire que la fin des accords bilatéraux qui doit ouvrir aux compagnies d'exercer, comme vous le souhaitez, un des intervenants, c'est des lignes directes. C'est qu'on a manqué d'audace, moi je pense. On a préféré plutôt prolonger, accorder une nouvelle dérogation jusqu'en 2030, en maintenant les accords bilatéraux, et aussi en ignorant que la décision de Yamoussoukro a été adoptée sur base de l'article 10, qui est obligatoire avec un effet direct. Et donc, on ne peut pas se prévaloir de dire qu'on n'applique pas. Je pense qu'on n'applique pas, et je ne peux pas citer un nom d'un pays qui a même dit « Moi, je me donne 5 ans encore pour que j'adhère au MUTA ». Donc, on a préféré politiser la question plutôt qu'à d'avoir une approche juridique. Et encore, au niveau de l'Union africaine, il n'y a pas une institution qui pouvait essayer de sanctionner ou sinon poursuivre.
I hear you. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a very complicated story, and we don't have a straightforward answer, but we're working on it, and time permitting, we shall get there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. But a round of applause to my panelists, and thank you very much for your contributions also. And have a nice day.